So you can see on the display it's saying 51 degrees, and right now it's about 32 degrees outside, and this temperature thing bounces all over the place, so there's the symptom. This is a short video about the ambient temperature sensor on a 2002 Audi A6. Okay, this is the replacement ambient temperature sensor. You can see the connector there. That's the sensor end of the item. There's the bracket where the sensor goes. The wire runs up through here. I had to take the headlight off. You need a Torx 30 bit with a long Torx 30, a long screwdriver, or a very small bit to fit in there through that hole to get to the last one, and those two screws to get your headlight out. This is very, very difficult to find. So the wire broke off down there. You can kind of see the end of it down there. The wire runs up through here, around this piece. It appears to connect right here, runs in with another group of wires, and runs into this. Now when I look at my setup, I do not see anything that looks like this sort of connection anywhere. So I cannot figure that out, and I'm giving up. I'm going to buy a couple speaker attachments, attach them to that, and splice them into that wire, and then see what happens. If they hold, I might put a drop of solder on there, and then wrap them in duct tape and call it a day. So hope this helps you a little bit, but this is an extremely oddball, difficult repair. Thanks. Here's a little different view of what I believe is the wire that for the ambient temperature sensor. So it runs down up right here. This wire's for something off the radiator air conditioning sensor. This bundle runs here. You can see right there the bundle runs across the housing for the light. You can't really see it too well. If you track it, it runs up into here, and it runs into this item. Now this thing has, right in the middle of this one, has a 2 connector item right there. But that looks nothing like the connector I have. So it's possible the sensor I have is bad, or if you pull this thing apart, you'd have to splice that in or something. I don't know. So what I've got are a couple connectors, radio connectors, that I'm going to try and join this thing. I don't want to cut my ambient temperature sensor yet. I could just cut it and splice it into the wires that are down below, but I'd rather not cut it if somehow that's not correct, and I'm just missing where that thing clips in. So right now I'm going to try the radio connector thing. This is a final video regarding the ambient temperature sensor for 2002 Audi A6 3-liter. The sensor that I sold on eBay, they said for A6 they didn't differentiate between the various A6 models. There's a 2.7 3-liter and a 4.2, I believe, the 8-cylinder. The end of these sensors is all the same for like the last 8 years, so the sensor end is fine. The issue with this is there's a connector for the 8-cylinder vehicles. The end of this sensor has a connector, and that's what's caused a lot of confusion on the internet. It caused a lot of confusion for me because I'm trying to plug it in somewhere and there's no plug. So that made me think I couldn't find the wire. So there it is. What I did was the other end of the sensor that has a connector on it, I just cut it off. So I just hardwired this thing. So the manufacturing, or the way it comes from the factory, is it's hardwired into this other piece. So I cut the end of the clip off, or the end of the plug off on the other end, and just spliced the 2 wires together. It looks like it's working. You can test it if you want to, put a little blow dryer on it, heat it up, 5 or 10 degrees, and see if the temperature's changing to double check that the thing is actually working. Don't overheat it, obviously, or bake the thing. So there's the wire. It runs there. Ran it here. Here's the wiring harness. This is the wire that runs for the air conditioning sensor. That's not it. Here's the one for the ambient temperature sensor. The wire runs down there. I cut it down at the bottom. Actually, it was already cut. It looks like the thing fell off and then got tore off, or a mechanic cut it off when it was dragging. So I spliced that in. It's not really relevant, but the thing runs up right into here. That's where it runs up. And again, it doesn't really matter. Where you're going to splice it in is somewhere down below this connection here. Now, I took my headlight off because I couldn't find the thing, and it was, I wasn't sure where it was. You actually don't need to take your headlight off. You're going to take your splash guard off, but you can disconnect it down there. So, and as a side note, if you are taking your headlight off for any other reason, this shows you what it looks like. You got the 2 screws there that are pretty obvious. The non-obvious one is that you've got to go through that hole and get to that. So you have to use a Torx 30. Show you what I used. So that's like a 1/4 inch receptacle with an extension, and then you put a small Torx bit on the end of that. The fat regular Torx bits won't fit through that hole. So here's a little information on your ambient temperature sensor and your headlight. Thanks.